Every company is looking for deals and money. So if you're able to provide either of those, find either of those, you can easily work your way into a lot of companies. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me today, excited to have Jacob Blackett. Jacob, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing well. I'm looking forward to catching up with you here, Todd.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've known each other for a little while here. I actually hired your company, Syndication Pro, to use as my platform for my syndications. And so I wanted to get you on the show, talk to you a little bit about that, talk to you a little bit about your investing and check in with you. So a little bit about Jacob. As I said, he's the owner of Syndication Pro, and his real estate career started back in 2010 as a sophomore at the University of Nevada, when he bought and sold his first two residential fix and flip properties in Southern California. Since he made the move to the Midwest in 2012, he deployed over $50 million into income producing real estate. And Jacob founded Holdfolio, a real estate investing platform on the basis of creating partnerships to profit from income producing real estate. Holdfolio currently owns and manages 1,221 units across the Midwest and Southeast. And as I said, he also founded Syndication Pro, which, again, that's a real estate software company. And it gives sponsors a fully integrated platform where they're able to raise capital, manage your investors online, and do all that kind of good stuff. So with that said, Jacob, why don't you give our listeners a little bit more about your background and what you got going on today?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Like you mentioned, I got started in real estate back in college, and actually, when I graduated, got my real estate license, started doing fix and flips and wholesale deals. And in my post-college life, I've never had a W-2 or a job. I've made money slinging real estate. So really my kind of evolution is that I was doing the fix and flips and the wholesales and started buying some rental properties. Really loved the idea that you can buy a piece of property that's going to shoot you off a little stream of income every month. And quite honestly, kind of fell in love with that concept. And so,
were you buying like duplexes and single families and stuff like that, or did you go right to big apartments?
No. I want to say I wish I went right into big apartments, right? Maybe I'll say I wish I went into big apartments sooner. But yeah. My first rentals were the single family homes. Just kind of cherry picking some of the fix and flips I was doing. I was also helping some investors buy properties, so I was keeping some of those to myself as well.
Cool. And so you were doing the single families, you're doing the fix and flips. What made you go, I want to turn it on to multifamily versus just continuing down that path?
Yeah, so back in 2013, 2014, I really started trying to focus on buy and hold single family homes. I had worked with a property management company who was managing 1,000 single family homes. Wow. And so I would see that rent roll coming in every month, close to $1 million every month in just rent. And I was thinking that the property management fee was pretty good. They averaged almost 9% as a property management fee on those single family homes. So they were seeing a pretty big clip every month. And I was thinking, man, if I own those properties, or if I own 10 or 20% of those properties, that would be pretty cool. And so that was like my first mission in terms of building my single family home portfolio. And what happened is it was actually a podcast that I found back in 2015, early 2016, and it was about multifamily real estate. And so I listened to some podcasts and was thinking, this has got to be my next step, because at that point I had about 100 single family homes, and anyone who's owned single family home rentals, especially many of them, they're all over the place, right? That they're all over town. They're all different, and it's a lot to manage that. So I was listening to this podcast, kind of envisioning that, man, if I had my 100 single family homes were all in one place, and all of them were the same, and I had my staff right there, I was thinking, that would be pretty nice. And so I eventually pulled the trigger. Had a colleague who was actually investing in real estate or in multifamily say, you just got to do it. Like you own 100 single family homes, everything you need to know. Just go buy an apartment, and so I took him up on that and bought a little 46 unit. And picked up a 50 unit about 6 to 8 months later, and never turned back, right? Actually cut off the single family homes completely, stopped buying those, still own about 100. I got up to about 150 at one point, but we're kind of selling those off and sunsetting those single family holdings and focusing on multifamily. The bigger the deal, the better, quite honestly. It just seems like from the 46 unit and the 50 units and the 80 units and 100s and 200s, it seems like the bigger those get, the better everything works.
Well, explain it to me, like what works better, because I think a lot of us start at single family. I started with single family duplexes myself, and went through a similar change as you did, and I find the same thing. So what do you find that makes it easier, makes it work better, that you like about the larger the unit or property type, I guess?
Yeah, I probably, if I could highlight it into three different categories, it would be, and just kind of talk about the different unique things that are better, it would be maybe less than 80 units. So like the 46 and the 50 unit, those ones, it was a breath of fresh air from my single family holdings, but they weren't quite big enough to afford an on-site office, and a leasing and a manager and on-site maintenance. If you had stacked all that up on site, it would have been your expense ratio would have been huge. Yep. And it just would have eaten cash flow. So we had to kind of be off-site on those management issues. Yep. So once what I found, once you get into about the 80 units, then you can actually afford to have on-site manager, leasing agent. Probably those are one person with an 80 unit, and then probably one maintenance person. And so that's now a breath of fresh air from the 50 unit, because now you have your people right there. And then you go twice as big, say 160 unit, and it's actually almost the same stuff, maybe one extra maintenance person. So that manager / leasing agent who manages the 80 unit, as long as they're good, and you always want to work with A+ talent, they can manage and lease up your 160 unit, and then probably add an extra maintenance personnel. So now you're from an expense ratio, you're that much better. And then of course, as you graduate to even bigger deals, now you can really afford to hire top-notch personnel. You can again get kind of more units to the person count, and just have those people right there on site.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things. Like a 200 unit plus building, we've got 2 maintenance people or more. We've got 2 on-site, leasing office staff or more. and it's great. You've always got people at the property, or not always, but for a good portion of the day, you've got people at the properties. You're able to take care of a lot of the issues. You're able to see a lot of the issues. That's the hard part about a single family home. I don't know about you, but for me, man, there's sometimes I don't even go to see my single family homes, or anybody for that matter, for months at a time. And boy, a lot can happen in a couple months. Right? Whereas an apartment, we might not go into every single unit every day, but we've at least got people on site at the complex, looking things over, minimum of 5 days a week. And the bigger they get, it's 7 days a week. So
yeah, I mean, that's a great point, right? You've got 100 single family homes would take you 2 days to drive past these things just to get an eye look at them. 100 units, you just stroll through the on-site,
yep.
maybe 5-10 minutes, and you gotta take your notes of whose blinds are ripped down and who's got trash outside their door, and
yep.
cars in the parking lot that don't run.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a lot, definitely a lot more efficiency to do in the one building versus, like you said, 100 single family homes spread around all over the city and maybe in multiple cities. And then are yours in multiple cities or just in one city?
Luckily, 90% are in one city. We do own about a little over a dozen homes in Dayton, Ohio. So most of our holdings are in Indianapolis. We have 14 or 15 single family homes in Dayton, Ohio, which is a little less than 2-hour drive away. So it's not so extended, but it's enough that it takes a bit.
Indianapolis proper though, or are they some of them in the suburbs?
Yeah, they're all within. All of our single family homes are within a 15-minute drive of downtown.
Okay.
And on both sides, so it might be 25 minutes to drive from one to the other, depending on where they're located.
Yeah. So my properties, I've got them in not only Minneapolis, St. Paul, but in some of the suburbs, and each of those cities have different laws. The different tenant require, or different rental requirements. Some of them require a license, some of them don't. Some of them require inspection, some of them don't. Then you got utilities. Some of them are this utility provider, some are this utility provider, and so it becomes difficult. You've got to navigate all that stuff, and talk about a mess, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Funny. So talk a little bit more about Hopefolio. You guys are syndicating properties?
Yeah, we did. So we did our first syndication back in 2014, and that was actually a portfolio of 10 single family homes.
Oh, cool.
And quite honestly, at the time I just dreamt up the scenario where at the time I was selling turnkey rental properties to investors. So I would get into them for say 35 grand. And so these were kind of cheaper properties, working class. In Indianapolis, it's a little bit harder now, 6 years later, to get into them as cheap as we were back then. But they're renting for $700, $750. We were rolling to them for 35 grand. And they've worked out pretty well as we've held them over 4 or 5 years. But what I was doing at the time is I'd be 35 grand all in, and then I'd sell it to an investor for say 50 grand as a turnkey product. I'd manage it, and then they would be theirs. And so I kind of dreamt up this scenario where instead of selling the properties to the investors, I'll simply put the 10 properties into an LLC, have the investors contribute cash, and get my 350 grand back so I could go do it again. And then that first deal was a 70-30 split, straight split. So investors would invest the 350 grand, they'd get 70% ownership, I'd get 30% ownership, and I was of course boots on the ground doing all the management. Those properties fair market value minimum 45 to 50 grand. So the investors are getting in at some good equity. And quite honestly, I didn't even know it was a syndication. I had never even heard that word until I was so far into the process that one of my investors asked to confirm that I had filed a Form D. And I was like, what do you mean Form D? And he's like, what, are you kidding? And so he said, this is a syndication. You need to talk to a syndication attorney. And so I immediately talked to a syndication attorney. We got it all buttoned up and filed, and of course did it up to par since then on the 18 syndications since then. But that's kind of how I stepped into it. So our early syndications were portfolios of single family homes, and then into the apartment syndications.
Did that investor stick? Did they do the deal?
I think he did. I think he did invest. Because I was just let's say I was 23. Just kind of, I've always been the type to kind of see what you want and fire, and just kind of go for it and figure it out along the way. I'm a very analytical person, but I don't tend to get too caught up in too much like analysis paralysis type of thing. It's like, let's do it and put those pieces in as we go.
It's amazing what you don't know, right? I mean, there's so many different things out there, and a lot of people don't have a clue what syndication is, and even if they do, they've heard of it, but they don't really understand the concept. And I was the same way. I didn't really know what syndication was, and it was doing bringing investors into deals as joint ventures, and it's just like the crazy things that you learn as you go. Just question like, holy cow, I should have known that maybe, but you learn as you go. So.
Hi, I'm Matt Jones, and if you're like me, you're looking to grow your real estate business while connecting with others. Well, there's this incredible new virtual experience unlike any other. I'm talking about the North Star Real Estate Conference. It's coming to you online October 22nd and 23rd, and it's not like one of those boring webinars that you find all the time out there. No, this is going to be interactive. You're going to have the opportunity to network and grow relationships with the other attendees as well as with the speakers. If you'd like a free preview, we're going to have a free event on September 2nd over lunch hour. You can sign up today for both events at nreconference.com and use the code DEX, D-E-X, for $50 off.
With Hopefolio, where are you guys going with that company? What's the vision? What's the dream?
We continue to acquire and hold real estate. So we're long-term focused. We're focused on multifamily real estate, and our ideal scenario is that within 3 to 7 years of acquiring an asset, we can refinance to return the vast majority, if not all the capital, to ourselves and our investors, and then really be in the position to hold it for exactly how long we want to, eventually getting that offer that is just too good to pass up.
So when you bring your investment to your investors, are you bringing it to them with a long-term hold prospectus, or do you have like we're going to sell this in 5 years, we're going to sell this in 7 years, 10 years, whatever? Or is it, hey, this is the deal, we're going to buy it, we're going to keep it, eventually we're going to refinance it, give you your money back, and we're going to keep it in perpetuity? Like, we're going to just go until, how do you present that?
So almost word for word, I say that, and this is pretty consistent amongst almost all the deals we buy. There's one deal we purchased that we had we wanted to sell it sooner than later, kind of get through the improvements and capitalize on the equity.
Sure.
And so all of the other ones really come into the same framework, which is ideally we can refinance in 3 to 7 years. That's going to get a return of the vast majority, if not all, of your capital. You continue to keep ownership and collect dividends as we own and manage that. And that puts us in the position of eventually selling on our terms and our timing to maximize the investment. Alternatively, we could, of course, sell it at any time to return capital plus profits. The thing is that there's a lot of external factors that we don't control. And so while we kind of lean towards that longer term refi and kind of that lets us control the destiny as much as possible, something in the markets could change. Financing could change. There could be a pandemic and we won't be able to get a good sale or a good refinance because inspectors can't go through units. So yeah, that's pretty much the narrative for all of our deals.
Yeah, I really like that approach, and an approach that I'm really kind of wanting to take here on my next few deals. I'm not a big buy and fix and then sell in 3 to 5 years type of investor. And I like the idea of that longer term hold. But it's just something that most investors aren't doing. They're that 5 year. We're going to fix and flip this apartment building. And that's your approach is I would say fairly unique in the realm of syndications.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely in syndications as a sponsor, you make a good chunk of money up front when you put the deal together. All your hard work can take months and months and months and many deals to get through. That pays off on the front end with typically acquisition fee, right? And then when you do sell the property, especially if there's a lot of value creation, that's a big payday. So there's an interesting incentive financially to kind of get in and out of deals. But at the same time, there's so many benefits to owning that over a longer term. And, the dividends that we collect are virtually tax-free, those earnings, right? And so yeah, that's the way I think it gives us a good position. From my experience, our investors appreciate that. Rarely do I hear someone kind of looking for, of course, people want to know when they get their cash back. And I think that's where you focus on that refi in 3 to 7 years. Yep. And so then you don't have to feel like you're committing to that sell. And at the same time, you're not committing to that long-term hold in case you get a magical offer that you never expected selling it for, or who knows, maybe the property just doesn't cash flow the way we anticipated, right?
Another good point.
There's lots of ways that you might say, let's sell this now because it's going to be most profitable.
Or there's opportunity. Look, I mean, we're in the middle of the pandemic right now, and so far there's no real glaring opportunity out there as far as getting multifamily for pennies on the dollar. But what happens if it does become distressed and you've got a high performing property? Your property still, it's not going to sell for as much as it did pre a crash, but it's still going to sell for a good dollar amount. If you can profit on it, you might want to take whatever pennies you've got there and buy something for massive discount. So that makes a lot of sense too. So it's nice having that flexibility. I really appreciate the flexibility that you guys have set up for your investors. And to me, it gives them probably the best kind of all worlds. Now they have to trust you, right? But hopefully they didn't come into the investment and put their 50 or 100 or whatever into the investment, not trusting you. So my guess is they trusted you from the beginning.
That rarely happens, right? I don't know if it happens.
We don't trust you, but we're just going to try this.
Yeah. But the pro forma looks so good. Now, you don't know about you, but this pro forma, man.
That looks great. Talk about Syndication Pro. As I said at the beginning, it's I have your company. All my stuff is being put through there now, and I really have enjoyed it. And so talk about your company, Syndication Pro, and kind of what you guys are doing and where that's going as well.
Yeah, it's quite honestly, it's been a blast. It's really fun. So I have Syndication Pro and Holdfolio. I feel like I work full time on both, and it keeps me busy. I wake up every day excited to do that. But Syndication Pro is born naturally. Back in 2013, when the Jobs Act has just been passed and the very first real estate crowdfunding websites came up, this idea of raising money online was really introduced. It wasn't available prior to that Jobs Act in 2012. So that had caught my eye in 2013, and I really wanted to source capital online. At that time, there was no investor portal. There was no software to do that. And so I had just looked at those early crowdfunding sites who built their sites themselves, developed that, and kind of and used those as basically a template to build my own site to source my own capital from investors. And so that's what I had done. And so through 2013, 2014, 15, 16, 17, into 2018, at that time I had caught wind of some investor portals and some software. And so for 5 years, I was basically raising money myself through my own website that I had built with my development team, which cost a lot of money and took a ton of time, but was really rewarding. And in early 2018, I decided that I would go ahead and demo some of these investor portals because maybe it was time to go ahead and say goodbye to my website that I built myself and kind of take things to the next level with this professional software. And when I did those demos, I just wasn't impressed. I came out of an hour-long demo and I felt like, man, this is a bit complicated. It feels bulky. It's really expensive. And I was kind of looked at my site and was thinking, what I have built already, I feel like is in many regards better than that professional kind of software. And so that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me at that point in time. And I decided that I would go ahead and pitch the owner of my web development company. I was using an agency to build out the first site and say, hey, I think we could polish up what we've already built here. And because I had already had colleagues asking me how I built Holdfolio and how they could do it themselves. But I told the owner of the web development company, Amit, who is my current partner, I think that we could polish this up and people will sign up and use it. I think there's a need for something simple, something intuitive, that doesn't have the bulk and the complication and the big price tag. And so that's what we set out to do with Syndication Pro. And we released a beta version in late 2018. I think that you actually were signed up to that first beta version, and then we released a second version, which is kind of takes everything to the next level, and that's what we're currently on. And it's been going really well. We have over 160 different sponsor groups and firms, and a lot of that growth has come in the last 6 months or so, just organic.
Yeah, and that's something I really appreciated about your portal is that, like you said, some of the other ones, well, first of all, they're super expensive for what you get, and they're really, I don't know, almost clunky. And I'm not a tech person at all, and I struggle, and you probably know that by the emails I send, like, how do you do this? And so the great thing is there's great customer service, right? It's easy. You guys are very easy to access, whether it's you or whether it's somebody on your team, very easy to access. And it's very easy to use, really easy to set everything up, really easy to upload, really easy to do everything on there, where some of these other systems, it was not easy. And customer service isn't that great. And the price tag is huge. And so it's like, oh, geez, and that's why I went searching for something else, and eventually, went with you, is because I didn't like what these other programs had to offer. So definitely appreciate what you guys have and what you've built. I think it's really cool. I'm excited to continue to see the growth and the bells and whistles you guys continue to add with it.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback. I'd say that's what keeps me driving and keeps me focused on Syndication Pro, is that we continue to get people that love it and are really jazzed about using it, and report back to us that it's improved their business, saved them time, and has been part of their ability to scale. And so that's so rewarding. And we just hired more developers, and we've got our team is getting close to 20. And so we're just working so hard at features, improvements, and just really bringing something that is unlike anything out there.
Yeah, awesome. Let's switch gears. You started this business when you're in college. You grew. You're now owning a lot of multifamily. You've got Syndication Pro. You've got some success that you've built throughout the years. What kind of advice can you give my listeners, especially the young listeners out there? They're like, man, I want to start when I'm 20, 21, 22, 25, whatever it is. What kind of advice can you give our listeners? Maybe 3 success tips or, pieces of advice.
Yeah. I think reflecting back, certainly one thing that I think helped me was a knack for self-improvement. And anyone who's motivated and wants to accomplish something typically has this already, but staying on top of what's available. What online is huge. The things that are available online, forums, resources, podcasts, and just continuing to soak up and take advantage of books and all of these resources. Keeping, for example, books, keeping ones that really impacted you or you really feel were great, and rereading them. Really, I'd say that would be one piece of advice. Also,
I love that piece of advice right there. You take those books that you like, and maybe even that you didn't like, but that were highly recommended to you, and reread. There's some books that I'll read and I'll like put down quarter way or halfway through it, and I'm like, this book sucks. And you pick it back up 3 years later, and you're like, wow, this book is just mind-boggling. It's so good.
yeah.
Sometimes your brain's not even ready for it, but rereading books, I think that's fantastic. But we try to get all these books, and sometimes they're right in front of us, the ones that we should read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Try to avoid that information overload, right? And make sure that when you find that juicy piece of information or that golden nugget, that you really push yourself to try to take action.
Yeah.
Try to, what actionable thing, how do I work this in to what I'm doing and really put this to use? I feel like one thing that was certainly a launching pad for me was back in 2012, when I was still in my first couple of years of getting going. I had was able to associate with an established group who were primarily selling turnkey rental properties, and so I had met them through doing wholesale deals, and realized that they had a big operation going on, and was able to work my way into that organization. Quite honestly, I framed it to the owner of that company that I have extra time. Of course, looking for deals. I'm doing these wholesale deals, hence how you've bought the last couple of deals that I found. But I'm also have some extra time. What can I do for you? And at that time, the owner of the company was creating marketing documents himself for the properties, and he's like, well, maybe this is something you can do. And I was like, gladly. And so I started putting together these marketing docs for him. Fast forward 12 months, and I'm head of his acquisitions. I'm going into auction. I'm picking up properties from all these different avenues. I'm basically consulting on his management company, taking his management company to a new software, helping kind of create departments and improve, and that was a huge launching pad. So if you're getting started, looking to get into this, if you can find a way to just work into an organization who's doing what you want to do, and I mean, spend a year, 2 years underneath that umbrella and working in those compartments and just giving it your all. And I mean, that was a big launch pad for me.
Yeah. And that's the key right there. Actually giving that true effort, right? A lot of people, business owners, are a little shy about bringing somebody on, right? That wants to learn, that they know wants to learn, because are they going to actually do anything? Or are they just going to try to suck information and then leave as quickly as they possibly can? So if you're willing to actually stay committed, truly committed to it, and show that, I think that's going to go a lot longer.
And also, there might not be an opportunity to get worked in immediately in terms of actually working within the organization, but most likely one thing that always is on the table is finding deals, right? Like any growing, we'll take multifamily for example, any growing real estate firm buying multifamily is looking for their next deal. And so if you can't worm your way into some type of process or kind of like W-2 related work, then become a deal maker. That's the top of the funnel. Go out there, find different avenues. Like, for example, if a firm is only getting their deals from their group of brokers, go start chasing direct to owner and see if you can put something together. Of course, that's an easy conversation, an easy proposal to an existing real estate firm is, hey, if I put a deal together, direct to owner, would you be interested, number one, to review my underwriting of it, and number two, if it's a good deal, it works out, are you willing to cut me in to the deal somehow? I'll let you do everything yourself, keep it in house. You don't have to worry about me getting in the way. But would you be willing to cut me into that deal? And just takes one deal, and that firm now looks at you a lot differently, and probably is more willing to say, hey, this is what you could do in house for us.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, every company is looking for deals and money. So if you're able to provide either of those, find either of those, you can easily work your way into a lot of companies. And I can promise you this. I mean, it's somebody brought me the right deal that worked out well in one of the markets I'm interested in. I'm gonna work something out. And my guess is you're probably very similar. I mean, if somebody brought you a deal in Indianapolis that was a great deal you want to do, my guess is you're okay with providing them a little bit of the piece of pie.
Oh yeah, I'm always willing to look at a deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So awesome. What's a big mistake or a mistake that your company has made, and how have you learned from it?
So the first thing that comes to mind would be the second apartment complex that we purchased. It was a 50 unit, and it had great historical occupancy, current occupancy. It was 70s vintage, early 70s vintage, and the owner had owned it for 30 years.
Yep.
From an external look, it was well taken care of. But what ended up happening with that deal is that our business model on that deal was to leverage the fact that it has high historical occupancy and demand, and use the revenue from current rents to help pay a little extra on each turn to make improvements.
Yeah.
So said shortly, we didn't raise enough cash up front to get through the improvements. We only raised there was like one down unit and one vacant unit. So we raised a little bit in that regard. And then in addition, we found out that repairs and maintenance were much higher than we anticipated, double our budget. And that was because the current owner just was putting Band-Aids on everything and not investing in the infrastructure of the property. So when a plumbing stack, for example, leaked in the wall, they just cut out and replaced that one little spot and covered it up when it really needed to be replaced, because they were doing those patches and repairs routinely. Yeah. And so on that particular deal, we were just undercapitalized. It ate cash flow. It ate into our cash flow. We ended up selling that deal early. Things worked out from an ROI perspective. We were a little under what we projected, but there was never a fear of principal loss or nothing too doom and gloom. But it was stressful to try to figure out, these repairs and maintenance are coming in so heavy each month, and dissecting those and seeing when is this, when's the end of the rainbow, and it took about 18, close to 24 months until those repairs and maintenance started kind of coming down month over month, because we were getting caught up on stuff that the previous owner was just neglecting.
Yep. And some of those are really hard to catch, and that's the value of having that reserve fund and having raising that capital up front and being well capitalized. And obviously you found that lesson the hard way.
Yeah. So
I think most of us have. It's easy to think that, like you said, you had a plan. The plan made sense. It made sense on paper, at least.
Yeah.
But then reality hit and
and
got derailed.
And also you'll find maybe rules of thumbs regarding like how much you should allocate for repairs and maintenance, for example. But that highly depends on the vintage, what year that was built, how the owner has been taking care of it. You could triple that. Yeah. So now, depending on the vintage, we had bought a property recently that was the same kind of early 70s vintage.
Yeah.
Our repairs and maintenance allocation was 4 times higher than that initial, and it's working out great. But we factor that in up front.
Yep, because you're always going to have that, especially that plumbing, and it's going to be huge. Plumbing and HVAC and that type of stuff on that 70s stuff. It's just going bad. That's just the reality. So, I got a couple more questions before we wrap up. I want to be respectful of your time. So how do you like to give back?
So I like to be a bit spontaneous. So there's different times, and be aware of what's going on. So I'll give maybe a recent example. I was in the dentist's office getting a filling, and I was overhearing on the office next door that this other individual needed 5 fillings, and they were trying to pick which to do first. They could only afford to do 1 filling now, basically. So she was talking about what they were trying to localize pain. Well, is the pain back here on the top or the bottom? And I was just thinking, man, that if I had 5 cavities, that would be tremendous. But I could pay for it to get it fixed. I wouldn't need to think twice about that. And so when I wrapped up my filling, I went ahead and put money on that other person's account to so that they don't have to worry about having a toothache because they can't afford to fill it, right? So I think giving back for me comes into a lot of spontaneous decisions like that. In addition, I'm involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I've had a little brother since 2013, 2014, and it's been really awesome. We do a big annual donation to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and are involved with them and some other charities.
Awesome. What's a favorite book?
Man, I think one book that I think about on almost a daily basis would be The Four Agreements, and this is really just fundamentals on how to be a good person and not get caught up in other things. So The Four Agreements is great. It speaks to not taking things personally, for example, being good with your word, always doing your best, just kind of these key things to consider. And that's one book that sticks with me on a daily basis in terms of trying to remind myself.
Cool. Last question before we wrap up. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
So when it comes to 3 pillars, the first one for me, how I look at this is probably get lucky. So that's the first pillar, and in my opinion, success, it takes some success to build wealth and have wealth, and I think it's made up of 100% of luck and 100% of hard work and determination. So you need both. Hard work and determination with no luck at all, in my opinion, just isn't going to get you anywhere. So luck factors into it a lot. I think this could be where you're born, what country you're born, what neighborhood you're born into, who your parents are, who you meet through life, the type of people you're meeting, what book you might stumble into, market timing, right? That's a huge factor of luck. And unfortunately, I would say another one would be due to systemic racism, the color of your skin even factors into luck, unfortunately. So it doesn't hinge on one lucky thing. It's a combination. And again, I think success requires both luck and hard work and determination. Number 2 would be innovative product or service. So having something that people love, people find value in, the community, or using. And then 3 would be invest. So this is where your money makes more money, right?
Awesome. In terms of luck, would you say that, well, there's some luck that just is luck, right? It's just pure luck and like where you're born. You can't control it, right? Color of your skin, you can't control that. I guess you could go get like skin treatments, but that's weird. So like that stuff you can't control, but there's some luck that I would argue maybe you can control. You think that's true or not?
Yeah, I think that there's situational luck. So, for example, you can't you can't time the market, right? Unless you were starting that business, right? So there's definitely situational luck, and I think certainly if I wasn't investing in real estate, or if I didn't go to a certain conference in the first place, I would never have met that person that I ended up partnering on that 420 unit deal with. Yep. So it was lucky I met him at the conference, but I put myself there at the conference. But I could have got through that conference with never meeting him. So it was lucky that I met him there. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good point. There's definitely uncontrolled, circumstantial, and then just by putting yourself and chasing dreams, chasing goals, you also have a lot of situational luck.
Yeah, and I feel, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like that situational luck that you can put yourself into the right position, if you're kind of willing and open to accept it, is where a lot of that will come then in. Like you were open to having a partner, right? You were open to building a relationship with somebody. You weren't just going to that conference closed-minded, only there for learning. That's it. Like you were open to have that luck coming to you. And I think a lot of that is how you are positioning yourself, positioning your thoughts and your mind to be able to accept the luck or to be able to push it away and deny it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And probably a lot of that mindset and positioning comes from potentially people I met previously, or maybe a book that I had read that changed my mindset. I think the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. That book was a random blur before I even knew about mindset. That was the first book, and I think I heard it when I was in a real estate seminar back in 2009, and I had seen the real estate seminar from a commercial late one night. It was like 1 a.m. I flipped on the television, and it was like a fix and flip, get rich. But that book, it's like, man, who knows? Number one, if I didn't see that commercial that night back in 2009, I might be a CPA right now, or or I had that specific real estate coach mention it.
Right. Yeah, good stuff. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Jacob, and I really appreciate you joining the show. How can our listeners get in touch with you to learn more about Portfolio, about Syndication Pro, and just learn more about you?
Yeah, so I would say my contact info is on both sites. So syndicationpro.com, holdfolio.com. You can kind of get some more ideas about those companies, and then my contact info is directly on those sites.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate you joining us on the show. Tons of value you were able to add, so I appreciate that. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Todd. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.